Thank you.
The Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Education and Research.
Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, April 28, 2021. Reports of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on its consideration on 1. The vetting of Professor Fatuma N. Chege, PhD, for appointment to the position of Principal Secretary, State Department for Implementation of Curriculum Reforms in the Ministry of Education. And 2. The vetting of Dr. Jamlek Muturi John, PhD, and Mr. Timon Alfred Otieno Oyucho, nominees for
closely to ensure that BBI was understood by the people. Honorable Speaker, allow me also to take this opportunity to thank you for according me an opportunity to chair the ad hoc committee on the funeral organizing committee of the Honorable Paul, and also to note that I served in that committee, Honorable Speaker, with the following 7 members: the Honorable Fatuma Gedi, MP, Wajir County; the Honorable Oku Kaunya, MP, Teso North; the Honorable Jude Jomo, MP, Kiambu Town; the Honorable Gadhoni Wamushomba, MP, Kiambu County; the Honorable Joshua Mbidhi, MP, Masinga; the Honorable John Lodepe, MP, Turkana Central; and the Honorable Washira Kafinga, the MP from Mwea. Honorable Speaker, the 8-member committee was charged with the responsibility of ensuring facilitation of the bereaved families, family member with respect to the burial arrangements and in accordance with the PSC bereavement policy for members of Parliament. Honorable Speaker, the committee held several meetings which culminated in a befitting send-off to our departed colleague. Honorable Speaker, I wish to highlight that the funeral ceremony of the late Paul Koinange was conducted strictly in line with the COVID-19 government protocols and guidelines. I wish to express my profound appreciation for the cooperation and support extended by the members of this House. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I take this opportunity to once again condole the family of the late Honorable Paul Koinange, and thank you personally because you attended the funeral. Also, to condole with the people of Kiamba constituency, the people of Kiambu County at large, all his relatives and friends, and the people of our beloved country. Fare thee well, Honorable Paul. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
For Mumias East.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to add my voice in passing my condolences to the family of Honorable Paul Koinange. Honorable Paul Koinange was a very close friend of mine, Honorable Speaker. While I was Chief Whip, we worked together closely. And it is really unfortunate that Honorable Paul Koinange had to pass away the way he did. Honorable Speaker, sometimes we really get disturbed because if I had an opportunity to pick anybody who had to go, there are several candidates that would go. But Honorable Koinange was a good man and a serious Christian. A serious Christian. And that's why I really felt the passing on of Honorable Paul Koinange. It was unfortunate that due to COVID protocols, some of us could not attend. But if it would be an open session, I can tell you, Honorable Speaker, that I am sure all these members of Parliament would have attended the passing on, the funeral of Honorable Paul Koinange, because he was friendly to everybody. Even his position as a leader of BBI Express, the expression he had over BBI was not as bad as what I've seen other members use here. And therefore, on behalf of my family and on behalf of the people of Mumias East, whom I represent in this House, I just want to register my condolences to the family, and may God keep the soul of our brother, Paul Koinange, in eternal peace. Thank you.
Nominee 001.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to pass my sincere, heartfelt condolences to the family of the late Paul Koinange. Honorable Speaker, and you saw I was a bit agitated. You know, when Honorable Washali was saying that there were potential other candidates, Honorable Speaker, God could have chosen from. Honorable Speaker, he was staring at me, and I got scared, Honorable Speaker, because this world is a bit beautiful, and nobody have ever gone to heaven and reported to us how beautiful it is up there. So, Honorable Speaker, I want, on behalf of myself, on behalf of my family, on behalf of the persons with disability I represent this House, to pass my sincere condolences to the family of the late Honorable Paul Koinange. Honorable Speaker, you know very well that the late Honorable Paul Koinange was a gentleman. He interacted with everybody. The committee was very active, Honorable Speaker. I appeared before the committee severally, and all my questions were taken up by Honorable Paul Koinange passionately, and he made sure that they were answered to my satisfaction, Honorable Speaker. And whenever there is a question of mine or any member that is coming up in his committee, he personally called each individual member so that we can appear before the committee, so that our question, and sometimes even share some of the responses that were given by the ministry. Honorable Speaker, on a personal level, is a very good friend. He have assisted me several times. Honorable Ladendwele is reminding me that he was a good friend. He is still a good friend to me, Honorable Speaker, and I know one day we'll be able to meet with him in heaven, because there is where we are going. I know some members may not be there, but when you go to wherever you are going, for us, I will meet him up there. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I really do pass my sincere condolences.
Member for Arienda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to condole with the family and friends of our brother Paul Koinange. Mr. Speaker, the death of our brother Paul Koinange is a reminder to all of us that COVID is still alive and remains a danger to all of us. Even as we go about our duties, and we all know that the Honorable Paul Koinange, because by virtue of being the chair of national administration, had to traverse this country to attend so many meetings. And these are sacrifices that sometimes citizens do not see that as members of parliament make. We must remain alive to it. We must always remember that we must take precautions even as we do our duty. I think we all know that the Honorable Paul Koinange valued national unity and was committed to fostering national unity. I do remember that he even spearheaded the idea of bringing community elders together across the country. And he has started as a member of the Kikuyu Council of Elders to bring the elders of the Luos and the Kikuyus together so that later he could foster such unity among other ethnicities. The Honorable Paul Koinange was quiet. He was humble. He was generous. He variously visited my constituency, and we had planned that I would also visit his constituency for development-related matters. Because we could not attend his burial because of COVID protocols, we did take time later with some of the members here and a few members from the lakeside. And just about a week and a half ago, we went to condole with the family. And we were able to have an entire afternoon within the COVID protocols to condole with the family. And I urge those of us who could not make it that there's still opportunity to mourn our brother and condole with the family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for South Imenti.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also want to take this opportunity to join my colleagues in condoling our departed colleague, Honorable Koinange. And Honorable Speaker, I request you, the member in front of me, the member for Nakuru Town East, is a bit noisy, maybe. And also, I think they're also not observing the COVID protocols here, Honorable Speaker. I'm scared, you know. So, Honorable Speaker, I didn't want to take this opportunity to condole with our departed colleague. And Mr. Speaker, Honorable Koinange, as all of us know, was a leader servant leader who worked for the people of Kiambaa and the people of this country with a lot of zeal, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, when the news, the Sun News came on the screens, because we were not here at that time, most of us were really scared that indeed can follow a good leader like Honorable Koinange, as Honorable Ashari has put it, and leave even those others who are harassing Kenyans day and night, because that member was very peaceful, a peace lover, and very hardworking, Mr. Speaker. During the examinations of the audited accounts for the NGCDF Kiambaa constituency, Mr. Speaker, I had an opportunity to visit his constituency personally as the chair of the committee, and the good people of Kiambaa were very happy with whatever he was doing there. We went to visit and to see district headquarters or the DCC headquarters, and also the constituency office and the NGCDF office in his constituency. And he had done a lot of work, Mr. Speaker. So I want to join my colleagues on behalf of my family, the good people of South Imenti constituency, and other Kenyans in condoling this gentleman, and maybe to ask our own Jesus Christ, because we have done this several this time, Mr. Speaker. We have lost so many members, so we would like, even as Christians, the Christian I am, to ask God now to put a break on this house and the House of the Senate. We don't need any other member to go between now and maybe 2022. We can try to see how we can support us on that journey, Mr. Speaker. I thank you very much.
Deputy Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, like my colleagues, I also want, on my own behalf, on behalf of the people of Kuresoi North, whom I represent, my family, and the liaison committee, which Honorable Koinange was a member. Just to say, other than being a personal friend, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Koinange was a member of the liaison committee, so I'm speaking on behalf of the liaison committee members who may not get an opportunity to say that he was an extremely active member of the liaison committee. If you check records, Mr. Speaker, about his attendance, he would only fail to come to liaison committee when he's doing other official duties outside of Nairobi. But something else, Mr. Speaker, which I think most of the members did not pick, is the fact that he was a very religious person. The fact that at one point, I'm not so sure if it is all the way to the end, but at one point, he was a co-chair to the prayer breakfast. That is the kind of person we are describing today. So as members speak of him as being a very hard-working chair, a very hard-working member of parliament, he was also an extremely religious person who tried to use his position as a member of parliament to also foster prayer and religion in the House. So, Mr. Speaker, on my behalf, again, I want to say that I pass my condolence to his family and to his constituency and to Kenya at large, and maybe also to the members of the Committee on Administration and National Security. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Mavoko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join my colleagues in condoling the family of the late Koinange and the people of Kiambaa constituency. Mr. Speaker, yes, I agree with members that Honorable Koinange was a gentle giant. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Koinange, despite being the chairman of a very sensitive committee, he could talk to anybody, everybody. And Mr. Speaker, I agree with members when they say he carried himself with a lot of decorum. Mr. Speaker, I know death is never kind it takes away the best. And I know the people of Kiambaa will miss their legislator. I know we shared our CDF manager. The manager I have came from Kiambaa. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you, he has brought in a lot of expertise and experience under Koinange. So, Mr. Speaker, allow me, on my behalf and the people of Mavoko, condole the family and say that, as other members have said, we'll all meet one time, if we all meet, if we ever meet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, allow me, on behalf of the people of Navaholo, and that of my own behalf, and also on behalf of the majority party, Honorable Speaker, pass my condolences to the family of the late Honorable Paul Koinange. Honorable Speaker, as a whip, it's very difficult to lead your colleagues unless the colleagues accept to be led, Honorable Speaker. One such a great man is Honorable Paul Koinange. Whenever I could call upon him that we go a particular direction in terms of what we want to pursue, Honorable Speaker, he was a swift person, he was quick to accept, and he would support me in all my endeavors in terms of whipping my colleagues whom I lead in the majority party, Honorable Speaker. On that, Honorable Speaker, I just want to say, may God rest his soul in eternity.
Member for Kilifi North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also would like to join my colleagues to condole with the family of the late Paul Koinange. Paul Koinange, as a member of parliament, as chairman of the National Security, was working on some of the most pertinent issues in Kilifi. I had presented a petition on the Pemba community. And within that period before his death, we were working with him on that. And I want to really appreciate the passion with which he took this job and the heart in which he went into to say we would like to help the people of Kilifi and the Pemba community in this country. He went out of his way. Apart from looking at the parliamentary, he even went to immigration himself. He talked to the CS and even promised that he would talk to the president about it outside the work that he was doing so that the people of Kilifi would actually get that opportunity. So I want to really appreciate the work that he did. He was a friend to some families in Kilifi, and in instance, mostly when we met, we became good friends towards his end because of the work that we were doing together. So I'll miss a chairperson who took his work really, really seriously, one who would not want to let down the country, one who would stand firm to ensure that government programs and work to help the community that this government serves. So therefore, I would like to condole with his family and urge all the chairs, all the members who chair committees to emulate the hard work and dedication and the spirit of nationhood that Paul Koinange embraced. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may God rest his soul in eternal peace.
Member for Mwatate.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa kweli mwenda zake Mheshimiwa Paul Koinange alikuwa ni mtu wa watu. Mimi nimekaa naye kwa muda. Kuna wakati nilikuwa nafanya marekebisho kwa hizi sheria za makazi. Nilishangaa sana na Mheshimiwa Paul Koinange ni mtu alikuwa anapenda Wakenya wote. Alikuwa sio mtu mkabila. Hata naomba Wakenya tumwige Mheshimiwa mwenda zake Paul Koinange. Manake yale alikuwa ananipatia mawaidha wakati wa hiyo sheria, hata nilishangaa sana. Mwenyezi Mungu weka roho yake mahali pazuri kule peponi. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Member for Igembe North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to say farewell to my very good friend, Honorable Paul Koinange, on behalf of myself and of the people of Igembe North, and state that I have been close to him as a good friend even before he came to Parliament, from the times he was mediating the issues on the South Sudan, and even became closer friend when we joined here and say he was a sincere friend to anybody who was close to him, and say that he was a gentleman par excellence. And for that reason, I would miss adequate words on which to describe him, having been out with him on very many weekends, on social gatherings when we are not busy with those BBI Express rallies, and say that, Mr. Speaker, the country has lost a very hardworking, a very good statesman, and a good friend to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also stand on behalf of my family, who Koinange visited many times, both in Nairobi and at home, on behalf of the people of Homa Bay Town, whom I represent before this House, to condole the family and give them, consolation. Mr. Speaker, I first met Honorable Koinange in the last Parliament, where we had a short stint with him in the Committee on Delegated Legislation. Honorable Speaker, we then came together in this Parliament, in which I was privileged by our party to serve with Honorable Koinange in the Committee on Administration and National Security. Mr. Speaker, we worked very closely. And I remember the last trip of duty Honorable Koinange took in Garissa County, where we went to check the border patrol issues with our police. I was with him. Mr. Speaker, only to say a few things about him. If all the committee chairs in this House could be like Honorable Koinange, then we would be a very good parliament. This is one chair who believed, and you remember, Honorable Speaker, it goes on record, on his own initiative, started subcommittees to better serve committee and parliament. And I was privileged, Honorable Speaker, to chair the subcommittee dealing with questions, petitions, and all legislations. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Koinange was always the first MP to come to Parliament and the latest to leave. Members would confirm that as early as 5 a.m. in the morning, you would find Honorable Koinange's car at Continental House. And as late as sometimes the midnight, he would still be there. As his chair of the Committee on Legislation, I asked him why he had decided I should chair that subcommittee. And he told me he was passionate about 5 bills. We have passed some of this. And Honorable Speaker, that was a leader of a committee who recognized that he was leading together with other members. Honorable colleagues, you noted me transacting the refugees bill at the committee stage. Not because Honorable Koinange was unable or incapable, but he said, you are chairing that subcommittee, pursue it through. He's passing on, Honorable Speaker, when we have the Narcotics and Psychotropic Substances Amendment Bill, I would request you, Honorable Speaker, and the House business, that we fast-track that bill. We were proffering amendments to the Kenya Coast Guards Act. I would request that, I know how passionate he was about it. May the House leadership, in keeping his legacy, fast-track it. Honorable Speaker, we were looking at ways of ending female genital mutilation and cattle rustling in the country. And there are amendments here directed my subcommittee to process around those lines. Honorable Speaker, I would crave the accommodation of the leadership of the House through you when they come before you. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, was the Nyumba Kumi initiative. It's a very painful thing we have lost him. I remember when we left Garissa, he called me for a public rally in Ruaka, in his constituency. And I'd been to his constituency severally. What a leader the people of Kiambaa have lost. We pray that God may keep him, his soul in eternal peace. But, Honorable Speaker, let me also register my gratitude to the members of Parliament for the support they gave Honorable Koinange in his hour of need. Honorable Speaker, when an alarm was raised that Honorable Koinange needed blood, we went there, and all the members of Parliament who went there, their blood could not be taken that day. In fact, we are now to be staggered. I thank the members for being there for him. I thank all members of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Honorable Speaker, what I would pray is that the House and the leadership of the nation and the leadership of Parliament gives us a chair of the committee with whom we can serve as the Committee on Administration and National Security to further those things which Koinange died for. Honorable Speaker, lastly, permit me only to say this. By the time of his passing on, we had gone to 41 counties across the country, meeting the police command, meeting the national government administration officers and seeing their challenges. We were doing a report by the time of his death, which we intended to table here, a report which targeted very fundamental reforms in our police service, and reforms which would conclude the police reforms which we had started. A report which was going to ensure stability in the correctional services, a report which was going to secure that there is complete stability in the the Public Service Commission and all sectors which were under our charge. In keeping with this legacy, all members of the committee knew what we stood for and how passionately he felt about them. When we bring it, Honorable Speaker, may I also request that the members, support us in keeping his legacy on the matters we will set out in that report. May the Almighty God keep the soul of our brother, Honorable Paul Koinange, in eternal peace. We are happy to serve and to keep his legacy. I thank you.
Member for Rangwe, let me just pick a few more, please, and then we can rest.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to represent the great people of Rangwe constituency in mourning with the great Kiambaa constituency. I'm standing here, Honorable Speaker, to mourn a colleague, a man of good repute. Honorable Koinange was one such member of parliament who cut across the board. He did not think of where somebody came from. He did not look at issues that were, problems in parliament, like some people want to segregate others and don't want to talk to them. And when I had issues with insecurity in my own constituency, I approached my colleague member of parliament, and he took it so personal to himself to handle insecurity issues in Rangwe. And as I speak right now, we have a place called Ndiru in Kagan Ward that was a problem like forever. But when Honorable Koinange took it up, he handled it personally, and wherever he is, he should know that Ndiru is fine, and the people of Rangwe and the greater Homa Bay County appreciate him. I mourn with the family of my colleague, friend, and I also pray that as we stay here in Parliament, for those of us who are left behind, COVID is real. COVID is in its bad position right now. I'm told that there are flights that are still coming from India to Kenya, and there is a variant that is so bad that is in India. I don't know what we are going to do about this as a nation. But as we remember our colleague brother, how I pray that we put more stringent measures in especially curbing the importation of very, very bad strains of COVID from other places. May the soul of my brother, my elder brother and friend, rest in peace. May God give his family the peace and the grace and the calm and quiet that they need at this time. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I appreciate you.
Member for Wajir East.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to send a word of condolence to the people of Kiambaa and the family of the late Koinange. Honorable Speaker, I've interacted with the people of Kiambaa and the family of Koinange way before many years ago, around 1975. When my brother, who was a member of parliament then, was a member of the committee, of JM committee then, and Honorable Koinange then, who was the member of parliament and advisor to His Excellency Kenyatta, was adversely mentioned. So from then, the people of Kiambaa happened to be a good friend of ours from that time, and then followed up by the Karumes, who are also members of representative of that committee. Nonetheless, I've interacted with Honorable Koinange when he was the chair of this committee of security. Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, my constituency has been bedeviled with a lot of insecurity and for that matter, the people of Al-Shabaab attack, and a lot of insecurity has been happening in my constituency then. I remember vividly Honorable Duale, who was then a majority leader, and I and Koinange sat down together to discuss issues of insecurity in my constituency and the border of Wajir with Somalia. And Honorable Koinange was very, very useful as far as our relationship and connection and discussions on the matter of insecurity in our area, the issues of KPR, the issues of placement of security in various areas in my constituency. He was extremely very helpful. I remember vividly once again, Honorable Speaker, lately I brought a petition into the House regarding the arbitrary arrest of a number of members of my committee, of my constituents, about eight persons who are missing and have been arrested by security agencies, and they have still been missing. I brought a petition to this House, yet we are supposed to get an answer. And I remember Honorable Koinange was following up that issue seriously on that matter. And I still beg Kaluma and the rest of the members and the Vice Chair to pursue vehemently so that I can be able to get an insight onto those missing persons which Honorable Koinange was missing. And I will be very glad that if they follow the steps of Honorable Koinange, we will be able to get a solution for a number of issues that have been bedeviled as particularly issues of insecurity. Further to that, Honorable Speaker, give me an opportunity. Honorable Koinange and Kaluma and other members have visited my constituency, Wajir East, Wajir Town, and have spent a whole night and stayed the whole day so that they can be able to understand the challenges the security officers are having in Wajir, particularly for those housing the police stations, which have not been repaired for many years. It was dilapidated. The police station was a colonial police station, and they looked at all those issues, particularly on the armaments and all those placements. So I'm very keen, and I'm really touched by their visit, and yet they were supposed to give a report, and I think before they were able to complete that tour of Wajir and many parts of this country, and they will be able to give a report, he has left us. But I'm glad that he was a very humble man, a very good man, a very old man, a very sincere politician who was given an eye and an ear to every member of parliament in this house. Thank you very much, and I say, go well, thee, and God bless you.
Finally, member for Tharaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to join the rest of our colleagues in sending very sincere, most heartfelt condolences to the family, the extended family of the late Senior Chief Koinange Wambio upon the demise of his grandson, Honorable Paul Koinange. Honorable Paul Koinange was an astute parliamentarian here. He actually stood out amongst the rest, and especially when it came to delivering services to the House and being the link between the House and the executive. I personally admired Honorable Paul Koinange and the way he went about doing his duties, especially as he read to us statements from the executive regarding our requests on various issues of security and the national administration. Honorable Paul Koinange was a friend to all of us. He was actually a very amiable person who was a friend to each and every member. He was quite affable when it came to asking him to assist where there were problems. You would never get a no from Honorable Paul Koinange, but he was always smiling, soft-spoken, and ready to assist each one of us in whatever problems we had. We have actually lost one of our best legislators in the country, and as such, we have to join the family in mourning him. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Very, very last member for Ainab Koi.
Mr. Speaker, sir, permit me to offer my message of condolence to the family of Paul Koinange, particularly Mary, June, the children, and the entire Kiambaa constituency. Paul Koinange, members of parliament, was indeed a great legislator. He was a statesman and he was steadfast. Paul's level of energy was indeed incredible, amazing, and remarkable. He advanced legislation and policy intervention in peace, unity, and tranquility in our own country. I want to say, since he served the nerve system of this nation, he was very humble and he was very loyal to His Excellency the President, who is also the 5-star general according to Article 131C. Paul Koinange treasured his work. Indeed, he was campaigning for BBI. Having said that, he was involved in peace, intervention, mediation in Southern Sudan, and it came to pass. In 1971, Paul Koinange was employed as a DO, like me, so he served in national administration. Therefore, he served this nation with commitment, dedication, and indeed devotion. He has left behind sense of humility, sense of hard work, and sense of sweat in this republic. Their family struggled for the struggle of independence for Kenya. And I've seen people wanting to inherit. In 1832, in the United Kingdom legislation, they didn't want inheritance. So it is all about competence, it's all about democracy, and I want to remind members of parliament that leadership comes from God. It is not by chance. It is a calling from God. Mr. Speaker, sir, since you are third in command in the republic, and you are a gentle giant, and I'm urging honorable members of parliament that let's have a committed servant like Paul Koinange, who used to be in work at 5 o'clock, and he used to mingle. He used to buy tea and mandasi, like me, Chepkut, a very humble person. So we were together with our great friend, permit me, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank you most sincerely. We were with Kaluma. For the first time, we all cried. Kaluma cried. We all fell down, even our vice chair. We were tight. When my people, Ibrahim, the late Ibrahim, was killed, he intervened and he sent homicides, instructed George Kinoti, and he came. And those who created all those ugly incidents were arrested. So I'm urging members of parliament, let's not be in a hurry. We want to have a competent, humble, and humane chairman like Paul Koinange. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm seeing great things coming to you. Let's all kneel down, because we are only 1 year to election. You are a great man, Speaker. You are a great man. And when Jeff Kut speaks, don't dismiss me, don't ignore me, don't even underrate. I've prayed God, and God will answer. And I want to urge members of parliament that God's favor, God's mercy, and God's grace surpasses all human understandings. Even it surpasses instruments of power. Kaluma, you can tell the ODM people, as much as His Excellency Raila Odinga He is 77 years. He is no longer greedy. The late father of Honorable Biwott in 2007, all Kalenjins voted for Raila, and we called him Aramipe then. Therefore, they said all what Raila wants is just suit and to be given salute, and that's all. So he doesn't have any creed. So me personally, Speaker, even I called him and he returned my call. He answered. And many cabinet secretaries, Speaker, sir, they don't answer phones. They just dismiss us. But we are great people in this republic. We create laws and we oversight. And we as members of parliament, we are told times of serve doctrine of transparency, doctrines of accountability, and we are number one. We are that in command. Therefore, we vet all of them. Mr. Speaker, sir, with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, the legislation of refugees and anyway, and cost cards and so on and so forth, let's pass it into law in its recognition. Mr. Speaker, sir, you know I'm humble, I'm tight, so at times, you know now, Biwott and Moi and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, they are all there. And when Jonathan Moi died, it is me, Speaker, we gave you a message of condolence and Paul Koinange. So we are doing great job. As much as you don't even tell us, we always talk on your behalf. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may God bless you.
Very well. Very well. I think on a special sitting, on a day for special sitting, that should now conclude the tributes to our fallen colleagues, the late Honorable Paul Koinange. Honourable members, I can see there are still several requests, but I think in the interest of time and the business which was gazetted for transaction, we will stop there and move on to the next order.
Order number 8, consideration of a petition on the removal of a member of the Media Council of Kenya.
Honorable Kisang, the chairman of Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation.
Honorable Speaker, I need protection, Honorable Speaker.
No, order, members, order. Please.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that, taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation in its report on the consideration of a petition regarding removal from the office of Ms. Tabitha Mutemi as a member of the Media Council of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on March 30th, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 14(3) of the Media Council Act 2013, this House finds that the petition as submitted discloses sufficient grounds as contemplated under Section 14(1) of the Media Council Act 2013 and resolves to submit the complaint to the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication and Technology and Youth Affairs in accordance with Section 14(3) of the Media Council Act 2013. Honorable Speaker, the petition by Miruki Muriungi, an advocate of the High Court regarding removal of Ms. Tabitha as a member of the Media Council Act, was conveyed by you on 11th of March 2021 and consequently referred to our committee for consideration. and tabling in the House within 7 days in accordance with the provisions of Section 14.3 of the Media Council Act number 46 of 2013. Honorable Speaker, the time was very short, and on 26 we requested as a committee for 14 more days because we are going for 25th for a short recess, and the House granted us 14 days. Honorable Speaker, that is why in this special sitting the matter has come up for discussion. Honorable Speaker, the petition averred that Ms. Tabitha was ineligible for appointment as a member of the Media Council of Kenya by dint of Section 16 of the IBC Act, as read with Section 2.1 of the fourth schedule thereof, which stipulates that an IBC employee, it's good for members to listen to this, that an IBC employee shall not be eligible for appointment to another public office. This is basically, that's what the law says. Honorable Speaker, the petitioner contended that Ms. Tabitha Muthemi's appointment to the Media Council of Kenya was also in violation of circular number OP/CAB.19/1A, dated 18th of October 2019, from the Executive Office of the President, which prohibits the appointment of public officers to serve as independent members of boards unless the enabling law specifically provides for the same. Further, Honorable Speaker, Article 77(1) of the Constitution restricts full-time state officers from participating in any other gainful employment. Honorable Speaker, the other ground advanced by the petitioner for the removal was that of gross misconduct, based on the allegation that Ms. Tabitha divide advice from the Principal Secretary, Minister of ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, by a letter dated 16 September 2020, that she should not hold two public offices and that she had to choose one by 30th September 2020. Honorable Speaker, without providing further particulars, the petitioner also alleged in support of the gross misconduct ground that Ms. Tabitha defied a lawful instruction from the Office of the Chief of Staff and the Head of Public Service, the Office of the Attorney General, and the IBC Chairperson. Honorable Speaker, in summary, the grounds for the removal of Ms. Tabitha were three. A, ineligibility of Ms. Tabitha Muthemi for appointment as a council member by dint of being an employee of IBC, breach of written laws, the Constitution, and government policy in her appointment, and then C, gross misconduct for failure to adhere to lawful directions by her superiors and appointing authority. Honorable Speaker, the petitioner therefore prayed that the petition be dealt with immediately in view of the urgency and gravity of the matter, issues raised. 2, National Assembly within 7 days from the date of receipt of the petition considers the complaint, and if satisfied, for removal, to submit the complaint together with recommendations to the Cabinet Secretary for suspension of Ms. Tabitha Muthemi and the appointment of a tribunal to consider, and if it discloses sufficient grounds for removal, recommends to the Cabinet Secretary to remove Ms. Tabitha from office in accordance with Section 14 of the Media Council Act. Honorable Speaker, Section 14 of the Media Council Act number 46 of 2013 regulates the removal of a chairperson or a member of the board of the Media Council of Kenya. Section 14.1 provides for the grounds of removal as follows: violation of the Constitution or any other written law, including contravention of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, gross misconduct, physical or mental incapacity that leads to inability to perform the functions of the office, incompetence or neglect of duty, bankruptcy, absence from 3 consecutive meetings of the council without justifiable cause, if the chairperson or a member becomes a director of any media enterprise or owns shares or has any other interest in a corporation, partnership, or body directly or through another person, if holding those shares or having interest would result in a conflict of interest with the officer's official duties. Honorable Speaker, if the chairperson or member is convicted of a criminal offense and sentenced to imprisonment for a period more than 6 months. Honorable Speaker, it's noteworthy that the procedure for removal of a chairperson or a member of the Media Council of Kenya involves the following process as stipulated by the law: submission of petition to National Assembly. That's what we are doing now. Deliberation by the National Assembly, and if the petition discloses ground for removal, recommendations are sent to the Cabinet Secretary. The Cabinet Secretary appoints a tribunal after suspending the chairperson or the member. Tribunal deliberates, and if the petition discloses grounds for removal, then the tribunal recommends to the Cabinet Secretary for removal. Honorable Speaker, in considering the petition, the committee wrote to various stakeholders requesting them. It was also put in the papers. We advertised to give written submissions as pertaining the petition. The submissions were required to be submitted to the committee on or before 23rd March 2020. Honorable Speaker, we received submissions from Ms. Tabitha herself, the Attorney General, the Head of Public Service, the Editors Guild, the Kenya Union of Journalists, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and the Kenya Correspondents Association. Honorable Speaker, at the onset, I wish to inform this House that the committee wrote a letter dated 17 March 2021 to Ms. Tabitha enclosing the petition by Mr. Muriuki in order to afford an opportunity to respond to the petitioner's grounds for removal. The committee wrote written submissions because physical meeting was untenable due to escalation of COVID-19 cases, especially in the month of March. And as members will recall, the positivity rate at that particular time had gone up to over 26%. By a positivity rate of over 26%. By the time His Excellency made a proclamation on 26 March to partially close basically 5 counties. In addition, there was the statutory period of considering the petition within 7 days. That's why we had sought that request for additional 14 days. Honorable Speaker, earlier on 3rd March, the committee had received a complaint, and we considered a complaint by Ms. Tabitha Mutemi on similar matters. That particular time it was complaint, but it's the same issue. Even though there was no proper petition before the committee for removal, the committee invited Tabitha and her legal counsel to appear before the committee, and all the other stakeholders came, that included the Editors Guild, the Solicitor General, the Media Council, amongst others. Honorable Speaker, the committee was able to appreciate the issue from the presentations and ultimately made a finding that the CEO of the Media Council could not lawfully remove a member of the board, as it was alleged by the letter. And in that meeting, it was agreed that Tabitha be reinstated on the WhatsApp group for the board members. And up to today, as we speak, Tabitha is still a board member of the Media Council of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, back to the petition before this House, with respect to the first ground relating to ineligibility of Ms. Tabitha for appointment as a member by the dint of being an employee of IBC, the committee observed the following. One, that Tabitha Mutemi submitted that state corporations and parastatals are not offices in the public service because they are neither offices in the national government nor county government as defined by the Constitution. She stated that the remuneration of chairpersons and members of state corporations and parastatals are not directly drawn from the consolidated fund or directly by Parliament, and therefore the positions of chairperson and members of the boards are not offices in the public service, which is not true. The Office of the Attorney General submitted that public service is defined in Article 260 of the Constitution as the collectivity of all individuals other than state officers performing a function within a state organ, while a state organ is defined as a commission. So those ones are basically in the law. The Honorable Speaker, the head of public service submitted that Mr. Peter was indicated as being an employee of IPC and as such in the service of the national government. The IBC is not listed as member of the board of MCK, so she doesn't go to the board as a representative of IBC. And Mr. Peter is not designated as a representative, therefore. Consequently, and by virtue of the Mwongozo Code of Governance and the circular OC CAP 91 I had stated of 3rd April 2016, Mr. Peter would be ineligible to serve as an independent board member of the Media Council. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission submitted the section 16 of the IBC Act states that members and employees of the commission shall subscribe to the Code of Conduct under the 4th schedule. Section 21B of the 4th schedule prohibits members and employees of the commission from holding other public offices during the tenure of the office with the commission. The commission is also guided by Article 77(1) of the Constitution as expounded by Section 52(1) and 2 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, which prohibits a full-time state or public officer from participating in any other gainful employment. So it's important that members know this clearly. Consequently, Mr. Peter Mutemi's appointment as board member to MCK is not viable while still in the employment of IBC as pronounced by the laws. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Section 14(3) of the Media Council Act, the committee, having considered the complaint, was satisfied that the submissions of the Office of the Attorney General, the Public Service, and IBC discloses a ground for removal from office for Mr. Peter Mutemi on the first ground, which is ineligibility of Mr. Peter for appointment as a council member of Media Council of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, with respect to the second ground relating to breach of written laws, the Constitution and government policy in appointment, the committee observed that Mr. Peter submitted that prior to presentation of the report to the Cabinet Secretary, the selection panel, through the exercise of an abundance of caution, sought the advisory of the Attorney General on whether public officers could serve on the board of the council. The Attorney General, in an advisory referred in the report of the selection panel, confirmed that public officers could serve on the council and submitted the report of the selection panel for the positions of chairperson and member of the Media Council. The Office of the Attorney General submitted that the said legal opinion concerned the question on whether the prohibition on multiple directorship in Mwongozo. Honorable Speaker, I might need some additional 2 minutes because I have seen the light is. I'm given a warning of 1 minute. Honorable Speaker, I ask for 2-3 more minutes. Honorable Speaker, maybe I just need to go to the end and because I was giving all this background so that members understand. Honorable Speaker, the head of public service.
Proceed. 2 more minutes only.
Okay, 2 more minutes. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
To conclude.
The head of public service submitted that Article 260 of the Constitution defines a public officer, basically which we've done that. Honorable Speaker, as a committee, we know basically The reason why there's this elaborate move to remove a member of the Media Council, it's because in 2013 we passed the Media Council Act to make it difficult to remove a member unless they are grounds. That's why it was anticipated that if there is a reason to remove a member, then they have to go through a tribunal. And then, Honorable Speaker, that is, all these reasons that I've given, Honorable Speaker, the committee, in its own wisdom and from the reasons that we've advanced and the law, that's why we find that the Media Council Act provides for safeguards to ensure this elaborate move is taken to ensure a member is not just removed easily. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Section 14.3 of the Media Council Act, having considered the petition, detailed submissions, and evidence presented in writing, the committee is satisfied and finds that the complaints contained in the petition relating to the ABC eligibility, breach of written laws, gross misconduct, discloses grounds for removal of a member of the board of Media Council of Kenya, and recommends that the complaint be submitted to the Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Information, Communication and Technology and Youth Affairs for appropriate action in accordance with the provisions of Section 14.3 and 4 of the Media Council Act, number 46 of 2013. I move, Honorable Speaker, and request Honorable Anthony Olwoj to second.
Go to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second this petition and support the findings of the committee. And it is important, Honorable Speaker, from the very onset that we understand the role of Parliament is very limited when a petition like this is presented to it. And Parliament, through the committee, is required to do just two things. Number one, to consider the petition, and secondly, to establish prima facie or on the face of it, if grounds have been established for removal. And in doing so, it is important that we underscore that the committee makes no finding of guilt or no finding of culpability, only to the extent that it establishes that grounds exist. When those grounds have been established, and we found that those grounds have been established, the duty then of the committee is to make a recommendation that a tribunal be formed. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that at the point where a tribunal is established, the tribunal then will have a duty to call the evidence, to listen in depth to the parties, including the person who would be affected and the petitioner, and then to find whether it is proper and indeed within the law to proceed with the removal. This petition, Honorable Speaker, it is important to note, was anchored on 3 or 4 main key issues which I want to highlight. And before I do, Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that we received submissions from IEBC, who are the employers of Tabitha Mutemi. IEBC invoked the provisions of their Section 16 and indicated that in terms of the code of conduct that Tabitha Mutemi signed as part of an employee of IEBC, an employee of IEBC shall not undertake any other gainful employment while still holding office as a member of IEBC. Honorable Speaker, the question as to whether the membership of the board of the Media Council constitutes gainful employment was not the duty of this committee to delve into. That is now remitted to the tribunal at the time that they will be considering in full on merits the petition before it. It will be their duty then to determine whether that constitutes gainful employment or it is not gainful employment. Honorable Speaker, we were invited to look or to consider that grounds existed to find that there was gross violation not only of the Constitution but of other written laws. These provisions of the Constitution that were brought to our attention include Article 77. Article 77 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, places a restriction or caveat on any public officer during the time or tenure of their employment to engage in any other form of employment. Honorable Speaker, Article 77 of the Constitution is also to be read together with Section 52, 1 and 2 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. The Leadership and Integrity Act at Sections 52 reads almost in similar terms as Article 77 of the Constitution, and in short, it is a prohibition. It is a prohibition on any public officer who holds office to engage in other forms of gainful employment. Honorable Speaker, the head of the public service made submissions, and in making submissions, the head of the public service drew our attention to Article 260 of the Constitution. And Article 260 of the Constitution defines a public officer, Honorable Speaker, to mean the office in the national government, county government, or public office service if the remuneration and benefits of that office are payable directly from the consolidated funds or out of the monies provided by Parliament. Honorable Speaker, the monies payable to IEBC for its staff and other operations are drawn from the consolidated fund and monies that are appropriated from Parliament. So, Honorable Speaker, based on that and the many representations we received, both from the Media Council, the IEBC, and other stakeholders in the industry, I want to underscore that the committee found that there existed prima facie, on the face of it, grounds for the removal. And I want to repeat again that the committee did not make a finding of guilt or of culpability. This is now remitted to the tribunal for purposes of determining the merits of the case. I have 1 second to second.
I'll give you an additional 2 minutes, Honorable Oluoch.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Based on those recommendations and the many representations that were made to us, we were also drawn, Honorable Speaker, to the Mwongozo Act and the circular that also underscores what is in the provisions of Sections 52 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. The Mwongozo Act is also a mirror of Article 77 of the Constitution. It also mirrors Section 16 of the IEBC Act. So having listened to all this, the committee's duty was then very simple, not to pass a finding of guilt, but to say that on a balance, we think that there is something to be inquired into. It is now the duty of the tribunal, if this House will agree with us, to decide on the merits and to give both the petitioner and Tabitha Mutemi fair hearing in terms of Article 47 of the Constitution and the Fair Administrative Actions Act. I therefore, Honorable Speaker, thank you, and I second.
What's happening in the House? That members have forgotten the rules of the House. That is a report which has been moved, seconded. Why are you raising up your hands? The question has to be proposed, isn't it? You don't put. Where did you go to school? On parliamentary procedures, please. You know, please, we must propose a question. Do I see the desire of the member who is here to remain standing? Oh, no, members. No, don't just remain there. Just remain there. I propose a question which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation in its report on the consideration of a petition regarding removal from office of Ms. Tabitha Mutemi as a member of the Media Council of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on March 30th, 2021, pursuant to the provisions of Section 14, Subsection 3 of the Media Council Act of 2013, this House finds that the petition, as submitted, discloses sufficient grounds as contemplated under Section 14, Subsection 1 of the Media Council Act 2013, and resolves to submit the complaint to the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication and Technology and Youth Affairs in accordance with Section 14, Subsection 3 of the Media Council Act 2013. Honourable members, the report has just been moved. Can I? Can we hear? Let me hear a few members. Then I will be able to gauge the mood. What's out of order, Honourable Junet?
Mr. Speaker, this is a special sitting, Mr. Speaker. This is not an ordinary sitting, Mr. Speaker. We have the Division of Revenue Bill, we have the BBI, we have many serious matters to discuss, Mr. Speaker. These are peripheral matters, Mr. Speaker. I'm requesting, Mr. Speaker, you put a question, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I quite agree with the Honourable Junet that this is a special sitting, but fortunately, in the Gazette notice calling for this sitting, this is one of the business to be transacted. And let me give the opportunity to, let me hear what members have to say, even if whatever the case. The there's a member who submitted. Member for Kadhiani. Honorable Robert Mbui, yes. Member for Kadhiani, yes. Yes, Honorable Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to agree with the Honorable Junet that this is not a major issue. It's a very small issue and that we need to dispense with it as quickly as possible because we have serious business, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, looking at this case and when you look at that report, clearly, I think we may be spending a lot of time of this Parliament and taxpayers on a very minor issue. Mr. Speaker, the accusations that have come on this matter are very minor, Mr. Speaker, because this is a person who was appointed, who's a director in IBC, then applies for a position that has been advertised and to take up as a member of a board in MCK, and then gets that appointment. Mr. Speaker, why would we belabor and spend energy fighting and to remove such a person? Because, Mr. Speaker, there are many, many ways by which people can be removed. We don't want to spend Parliament time discussing an individual. Mr. Speaker, you can be in IBC and become a chair of a board of a school in your constituency. Does that become illegal? Does Parliament have to sit here and discuss that matter? Mr. Speaker, if you look at this thing, there are even precedents, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, there are precedents. There are other IBC commissioners or directors who have also served in boards. One served, I think, in the Salaries and Remuneration Committee and with approval of IBC. So, Mr. Speaker, this is something I believe is very malicious. And I think the best thing to do is just put the question, we finish with this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Put the question.
Member for Moranga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to join my colleagues because it is not fair for this House to take on issues that seem to be very malicious and petty. Mr. Speaker, it is important to just mention to this House that Ms. Tabitha is she's a corporate affairs and events manager at IBC, and the position that the committee has presented today is a part-time basis position and not a formal employment. And Ms. Tabitha is there out of her experience being in the media industry, and it's good I also, Mr. Speaker, disclose that I've been in the media industry. And she's only there to give her advice to the council. This is not a formal employment, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to go into the details because, Mr. Speaker, a process was followed. This position was advertised. Mr. Speaker, even when she was given the position, it was gazetted, and the details are there. 2 years down the line, what could have happened? Let us not engage into boardroom fights here in the parliament. We need, Mr. Speaker, to rise beyond those boardroom fights. And it's wrong for committees of this House to be involved in such issues, Mr. Speaker. I would like to put up to the committee, was even the lady invited to appear, when she was told to give a written submission, she begged to be given a chance to appear, even if it's virtually. She was denied an opportunity. How then do we come up to a conclusion and we say the position is illegal? And we know the CS and even the unions are in support of her expertise in that part-time job. Mr. Speaker, I urge this House we reject the report and we move on to some more serious businesses that we have in this House. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honour members, you know, you need to familiarize yourselves with Article 119 of the Constitution regarding petitions. It does not mean that there is a mistake. If anybody petitions the House on any matter that is within its power, and it is important, within its power, then the House cannot decline to have the matter considered by the relevant committee. However, what the decision the committee arrives at is an entirely different matter. And therefore, I wanted to correct the member from Muranga. When a petition is brought, as long as it meets the criteria for petitions, it would be a dereliction of duty on the part of the Speaker not to refer the matter to a committee. As you know, the Speaker has no vote, and therefore, if the Speaker were to, without referring the matter to a committee, reject a petition, it will be exercising some vote. So it is the committee that really has to make the decision once the matter is referred to it. Let me hear a member of the committee, the Honorable Sotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I'm a member of the ICT committee, and I had given my dissenting opinion to this, to the majority members' report, on the basis, Mr. Speaker, that we had procedural gaps in the way the committee conducted this matter. Because, Mr. Speaker, when you gave direction to this committee to look at this matter, I remember, Mr. Speaker, you said that the process of removal of a person from public office is quasi-judicial in nature. And therefore, all steps must be taken to make sure that judicious attention and moderation is considered. Mr. Speaker, this committee requested for more time. And I remember I seconded that motion requesting for more time to consider this matter. But when the committee sat, we took only 2 hours to dispense with this matter. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, you know this matter first appeared before the committee as a complaint. Then the committee made a decision that they could not act on a complaint, they required a petition. Strangely, a petition was lodged. And before that petition was logged, there was a previous petition by the Editors Guild, which strangely, it was not committed to the committee. We never looked at it. But this particular one by an individual who, in the committee's wisdom, was never even asked to appear before the committee. So we made a decision on a petition by a petitioner who never appeared before us,
We could not confirm his identity, and for that matter, Mr. Speaker, I said I will not support a process that has procedural gaps. Mr. Speaker, when you are looking for a petition for a removal of a person from office, you need to consider all material facts before you. This is a house of record, and this is a house of procedure. We had a number of materials before us. First of all, the materials that came as a complaint. These materials were not considered. And I raised this matter before the committee, and the committee overruled me that we only consider the petition as it is. Any other matter that came via complaint was not going to be considered. And I thought, Mr. Speaker, any matter that comes to this House and is recorded as material before the House must be used to make a determination on a similar matter. Mr. Speaker, the petitioner, it is important that the petitioner should have been invited, either virtually or physically, to appear before the committee. That was not done, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this person, Tabitha Muchemi, made some reasonable requests to the committee, some information to be given. She was not given. She made a request that Hansard of 3rd March 2021 be provided to her. That request was not honored. She made a request that the evidence of one, Eric Oduor, who was the chair of the selection panel that selected her to sit on that board, she was not given. He made also a request for evidence of the Solicitor General in the case of Katiba Institute and others versus the Attorney General. That information was not given. Mr. Speaker, looking at all the issues, you could clearly see that the committee did not consider all the material facts that were required to make a decision in this matter. And for that matter, Mr. Speaker, I decided to write a dissent report. But Mr. Speaker, when I read the report that has been tabled before this House, it does not contain my dissent report. Instead, it talks about the committee having looked at my dissent opinion, made a decision. I want to say before this House, the committee never met to decide on my dissent opinion. Ordinarily, when a member dissents, that report must be attached to the main report, so that when it appears before the House,
Member for Kitui Central. Member for Kitui Central.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want also to add my voice to this important petition. And Honorable Speaker, I've taken time to look at the report. And when I looked at the report, Honorable Speaker, I've identified a number of gaps which the committee could have considered. I just want very quickly, because of time, to mention them. Honorable Speaker, when this member was nominated to the board, it was gazetted, and that was public knowledge. So that means IABC was aware of this matter for the last 2 years. How come today they are saying they were not aware? To me, that should have been considered by the committee. The second issue, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of the Media Council board. When you look at their act, it is clearly stated who should be a member of that council. So, Honorable Speaker, if you say you form a committee and you say these are the members, it means anybody else outside the membership is not a member. The same way, in a situation where they say this should be the members, it means anybody outside that bracket can become a member because they are saying so and so cannot be a member. So I get worried, Honorable Speaker, when I see somebody who is a member and it falls within the bracket of those who should be members being punished for being a member. The third issue, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of permanent employment and party time. Honorable Speaker, most of us here have been board members in parastatus. And you only earn a sitting allowance.
And if you look at the Mongoose, Honorable Speaker, it says you can only meet 4 times in a year. So the question is, part-time employment, is it equal to permanent employment? And I think the answer to that, Mr. Speaker, is no. So on that basis, Honorable Speaker, there are so many public servants who are public officers who are serving boards, and they are not being punished basically because it's a part-time employment. And the other thing, Honorable Speaker, is as a board member, you only provide strategic direction to an organization. You are not a day-to-day operator. You only go there when they are meeting, you discuss policy issues, and you go back to your position. So, Honorable Speaker, I think this is unfair. And Honorable Speaker, there is this issue of the Media Council. And the question is it a parastatal just like we have KRA, just as we have another government parastatal? And I think the answer is no, Honorable Speaker. Because to some extent, this is an independent body taking care of the interest of the media fraternity. And if you look at all the submissions by the unions, the media unions, they are saying, Mr. Speaker, they have no objection to this particular member being a member of the board. So, Honorable Speaker, to me, I think what is happening in this place is that somebody is running away from accountability. This CEO of this organization, Honorable Speaker, I must come out clearly. I think he doesn't want to be held accountable. And the committee is now assisting the CEO to run away from accountability. Honorable Speaker, I think this is very unfair to this country. And Parliament being an oversight body, Honorable Speaker, because we are an oversight organization, Honorable Speaker, we should be the first line in terms of demanding accountability. So on the basis of this, Honorable Speaker, I want to say this report must be rejected by this House, and this member must continue serving to serve a full term of 3 years, which is ending next year. So I don't know why someone should serve 2 years and the third year you have been taken away, Honorable Speaker. And the CEO must really not be seen to be running away from accountability. We demand accountability from every Kenyan. On those basis, I reject this report. Honorable Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, Honorable Speaker. And as you rightfully put it, Honorable Speaker, as a Speaker, you don't have a vote. So referring it to the relevant committee is very important, Honorable Speaker. But from the committee, ever since I came to this House, I've never seen a petty, malicious, and a report that was not well thought about, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, because I think they did not do their groundwork very well, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, being a member of a board is not gainful employment, Honorable Speaker. There are a lot of parastatals. I was once a chairman of a parastatal, Honorable Speaker, a state corporation, Honorable Speaker. And in my board, Honorable Speaker, I used to have members of the board who are PSs, Honorable Speaker. PS of ministries, Honorable Speaker, sitting with us, Honorable Speaker. Because this is not gainful employment. How do you punish a lady for that matter? And you know, we are talking about 2/3 gender rule. And here we are punishing a lady. After punishing a lady, Honorable Speaker, they will start punishing persons with disability. And Honorable Speaker, this House should be aware, Honorable Speaker, that now the president of the judiciary is actually a lady, Honorable Speaker. So we should take we should be very careful, Honorable Speaker. And I hope the chairman is listening, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, lastly, Honorable Speaker, who violated the act, Honorable Speaker, because they are saying that she was not eligible for appointment. So, was she the one that appointed herself? We should instead have punished the minister who appointed that particular lady if there is any law that was broken, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this report is very malicious, and I urge this House, for the sake of protecting and oversighting, Honorable Speaker, we should reject it in totality. So we will reject it in totality, Honorable Speaker. It's a very malicious, and I'm ashamed to be part of this House, especially for the chairman. Chairman, please, with due respect, this report, you did not do your groundwork very well, and it is very malicious. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Tiende Amoro.
Mr. Speaker, I am quite alive to what appears to be the mood of the House, but I beg to agree with the committee. Mr. Speaker, first of all, the flaws in terms of process that many members have spoken to please. The flaws in terms of the process that many members have spoken to is an issue that the tribunal would look at if it was formed. Any tribunal must observe strictly the requisites of the Commission on Administrative Justice Act, the requisite of fair administrative action, and no tribunal can possibly come to any conclusion without calling all the parties. All that the committee was required to was to consider in law what we call prima facie. Is there a basis for saying let it now be inquired into? That is all. You cannot therefore fault them for not going into the details. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we must not take this matter lightly, because another time, another petition will come that is similar, then we will be asked, on what basis are you now treating this different? This is a question of principle. We as a House, are we okay that despite the provisions of the IBC Act, despite the provisions of the Constitution, Article 77, it is okay for one individual to hold 2 public offices, possibly from which they are earning? If our answer is yes today, then let us be consistent. Let it be yes for any other case. So for me, I am not personalizing to the individual. I am attending to the issue of principle. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, this is a matter where the opinion of the Attorney General was sought, and the Attorney General is in agreement with the approach of the committee. The IEBC chair himself is in agreement. On what basis can we then treat this matter lightly? It must be remembered, Mr. Speaker, that in any case, as a matter of policy, we are in a country of many learned people who do not have jobs. Why should we as a policy say it is okay for one person to hold more than 2 positions? I am one that I am in agreement with the committee as a matter of principle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Tharaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you've listened to the great speeches that have been made, and I believe you've read the mood of the House. Arising under Standing Order number 95, I now request you to call upon the mover to reply so that we dispense off with the matter.
Now, honourable members, if the member for Igembe North could take his seat so that we can that was a point of order. So you must hold your horse. Yeah? Those ones who are migratory, is it possible that we can just give us time to do this? So that on our members, we don't begin saying that you wanted to dispense of. Let's get these moods. The member for Tharaka stood in his place and claimed to move that, under Standing Order number 95, that the mover be called upon to reply. I therefore put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I arise to reply. Honorable Speaker, it's unfortunate that you...
Who is this who is persistently shouting point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm raising this matter because I think sometimes last year, a similar matter appeared before this House. It's a purely on issue of procedure. Mr. Speaker, in this particular matter, an accused person had requested to appear before a committee. And the ruling from the chair, Mr. Speaker, was that members of committee are totally out of order to deny an accused person to appear before committee, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to bring it to your attention that, Mr. Speaker, despite your previous rulings, and if I'm not wrong, Mr. Speaker, it's on 2 previous occasions, you have warned members of parliament not to deny accused persons appearing before them. So, Mr. Speaker, at that time it has appeared again. An accused person requests to appear, and the committee denies that accused person the opportunity to appear, whether physically or virtually, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Speaker, either to issue a warning or refer this committee, because you had given 2 previous warnings, to the Privileges Committee, Mr. Speaker, so that stands as a lesson for members who deny anybody to appear before the committee, Mr. Speaker, despite asking to appear, Mr. Speaker. And again, Mr. Speaker, to warn members not to get involved in boardroom wars. In the 10th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we saw...
Now, this address.
Mr. Speaker, I put my question. I put my point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Because the mover is already replying. And remember, the Honorable Osotsi did speak to the issue that you've raised. And one would have expected that the Honorable Kisang, in replying, will respond to those allegations raised by the Honorable Osotsi, who is a member of the committee. So move up, please proceed to...
Honorable Speaker, it's unfortunate that apart from Osotsu dissented, he's the only one who got opportunity to speak from my committee. The other members did not get opportunity, and I want to donate 2 minutes.
You are replying.
It's my right. It's my right to donate. It's not...
No, you don't have... You are replying.
Yeah.
You can only... Just reply. Just reply.
Okay,
just reply, Honorable Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wanted to state here, Honorable Speaker, that Honorable Sotsi proposed that we recommend that the CS ICT forms a mediation committee to resolve this issue. And there is no law that is giving us an opportunity to do the recommendation. We follow the law, and our recommendation is by the law, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to also inform this House that we met Thabitha on the 3rd of March with a lawyer. We met several stakeholders, and they appeared before our committee. When the petition eventually came and we wrote to them and told them to do a written submission, the accused never requested to come in person. She agreed and she did a submission. So when you hear one or two members saying that she was not given an opportunity, it's not right, Honorable Speaker. And I want to state that this committee, we did our job as per the law. And from the mood of the House, it is very sad that it looks like there is a lot of lobbying that has gone around, and some people have been cheated that next year they'll be assisted. Honorable Speaker, I reply.
Could the member for Wudanyi take his seat? Take your seat. Honourable members, even before I put the question, I want to make this observation. In light of what the Honourable Charles Kilonzo said, yet that indeed, honourable members, when a matter is referred to a committee of this House, and any member of public either writes or appears before the committee desirous of providing any information, I think it is against the rules of natural justice to deny such persons the opportunity to make representations as they deem. And I think members of such a committee should be the first ones to notify the Speaker of any such transgression, if it ever happens or threatens to happen before a committee. But again, on the other hand, honourable members, a general observation that some of these matters which touch on violation of the law and or the Constitution are fairly tricky. And I think Kenyans would be best advised that Houses of Parliament are places for politics, and that sometimes what decisions are taken not purely on the basis of the law, but on the basis of politics, and how the House membership has been lobbied. So it's just to caution Kenyans in general that where you allege violation, please just take the matter straight to the courts of law or tribunals or such like bodies. It looks like increasingly as we approach August 9th, 2022, it's going to be very difficult for this House particularly to make decisions on matters of this nature. So this is just a general observation for the consumption of members of public who desire intervention. Intervention, even though Article 119 permits any person to petition a House of Parliament on any matter that it's within its power. So that's the crux of the matter, within its power. So people are advised generally to examine and see whether it is really within the power of the House to make such an adjudication, especially one alleging violation of the Constitution and or the law. That said and done, I proceed to put the question that, taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation in its report on the consideration of a petition regarding removal from office of Ms. Tabitha Mutemi as a member of the Media Council of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on March 30th, 2021, and pursuant to the provisions of Section as submitted, discloses sufficient grounds as contemplated under Section 14, subsection 1 of the Media Council Act 2013, and resolves to submit the complaint to the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication, Technology, and Youth Affairs in accordance with Section 14, subsection 3 of the Media Council Act 2013. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The nays have it. The nays have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, consideration of Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill 2021.
The Chairman, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly number 7 of 2021 be now considered. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by thanking your office and that office of the clerk for enabling my committee under this very difficult time to consider the message from the Senate. Honorable Speaker, I also would want to thank my committee for working throughout the clock to make sure that within a very, very short time, we were able to give a report on, from the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in accordance to Article 110 of the Constitution, Section 191(4) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order 41, I'm honored to present to this House, on behalf of the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the committee's report on the message from the Senate on the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly number 7 of 2021. Honorable Speaker, the National Assembly considered and passed the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly number 7 of 2021 on the 23rd March of 2021. In line with this provision of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Order 41 of the National Assembly, relating to the messages to and from the Senate, the message was submitted to the Senate on the 24th March 2021 for its consideration and concurrence. The Senate, on Tuesday, 13th April 2021, passed with amendments the Division of Revenue Bill 2021 and sought concurrence with the concurrence of the National Assembly on the said bill in accordance with provisions of Article 112(1)(b) of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, my committee held one meeting to consider what came from the Senate. And Honorable Speaker, in its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill 2021, the Senate observed the High Court ruling on petition number 252 of 2016. In its consideration, Mr. Speaker, the court ordered that in accordance with Article 2022 of the Constitution, all funds crested in the Division of Revenue Act as conditional or unconditional grants should be disbursed to the counties through the County Revenue Fund. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, directed that the Division of Revenue Act to conform to the provisions of Article 2022 and 203(1) of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, the Senate further noted that conditional or non-conditional grants are not items to be provided for under the Division of Revenue Act, and that the conditional and non-conditional grants can be issued to the county level of government under the auspices of Article 190 of the Constitution, or through an agreement between the two levels of government that respect the institutional and functional integrity of either levels of government. Honorable Speaker, in this regard, the Senate amended the Division of Revenue Bill 2021 as passed by the National Assembly by deleting the memo items which had a proposed allocation of Kenya shilling 39.88 billion from its national share as additional conditional allocation to county governments. This comprises of Kenya shilling 7.537 billion for the leasing of medical equipment and two supplement for constructions of county headquarters.
Just 1 minute, Chair. Honourable members, I hope you have looked at the Gazette notice. This is one of the key businesses that you are supposed to transact. And when I see members walking out, I don't know whether they have not known that this is one of the businesses they're supposed to transact. In as much as the whips and the leadership are supposed to be doing this, I think it behoves the chair also that to notify members that, please, this is important business to transact, because, you know, counties may not be able to develop their budget estimates without a Division of Revenue Act in place. Indeed, even the National Treasury cannot. Proceed. Proceed, Honorable Kanini Kega.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that guidance. In fact, also to add that the estimates cannot also be tabled before we also dispense with the Division of Revenue. Honorable Speaker, this comprises of, and it's very important, the 7.535 billion for the leasing of medical equipment and supplement to the construction of county headquarters, and also another 32.342 billion shillings as additional conditional grants to county governments financed from proceeds of loans and grants for development from development partners. Honorable Speaker, these conditional grants were reflected in the Division of Revenue Bill as memo items, which served as additional information to disclose the allocations going to county governments besides the county equitable share allocation. These funds, therefore, are included in the appropriations bill for the national budget. The Division of Revenue Bill, as passed by the National Assembly versus the one approved by the Senate, is also shown in also the document that we have also tabled, Mr. Speaker. And then I would invite members to have a look at it. Honorable Speaker, finally, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the schedule is attached here, and it's very, very important for members to see that the amounts that now will be included is the national shareable revenue at the national level, which is 1.3 trillion. And then, of course, we'll have the equalization fund of 6.8 billion, and also the county equitable share of 370 billion. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, the committee made the following observations, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, the committee made the following observations: that this before we go to recommendations, the committee made the following observations, Mr. Speaker, that the major point of departure between the National Assembly and the Senate is presentation of a memo item in the schedule of the Division of Revenue Bill 2021. There is no dispute, Mr. Speaker, between the amount to be allocated to the counties and the removal of the memo items does not materially change the flow of funds to the counties, as the memo items are already set out or set aside in the national budget and will be appropriated accordingly. Honorable Speaker, we also made the following observation, that going forward, there is need to have and there is need to establish a legal framework for the transfer of these conditional grants to the respective county revenue funds, CRFs, so as to ensure timely release of funds for implementation of programs and projects at county level. Honorable Speaker, not very many legislators here know, or even in the counties, know about these funds. In fact, there is no clear legal framework how these funds are disbursed and also how these funds are appropriated and how they are oversighted. Mr. Speaker, we had a few months ago allegations that in Garissa there were funds, conditional grants sent there, but those funds were not used for that particular purpose. So with this, going forward, we have to have a legal framework how these funds will be dispersed and also oversighted. So, Honorable Speaker, finally, the committee recommends that this House do concur with the proposed amendments by the Senate and therefore accept deletion of the schedule as well as the accepting the substitution therefore for the new schedule as proposed. Honorable Speaker, with those many few remarks, I beg to move and request the leader of Minority Party, Honorable John Buddy, to second.
Buddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I second this motion, I would like to begin by appreciating the work done by the Senate in reviewing the Division of Revenue Bill and proposing some amendments to it. I would also like to commend the Budget and Appropriation Committee for the speed and timeliness with which they have reviewed the Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill 2021 and prepared a report which has been tabled in this House. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware of the extensive delays in previous financial years of passing the Division of Revenue Bill and the adverse effects that this has had on service delivery in our counties. Mr. Speaker, it is for this reason that I am commending the work of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, which has enabled this House to be able to process the Division of Revenue Bill on time. Mr. Speaker, the timeliness is a very important factor in the budget process. When the Division of Revenue Bill and the County Allocation of Revenue Bill are passed on time, the county governments are able to have a realistic estimation of their resource envelope and to finalize the annual budget estimates accordingly. Mr. Speaker, a lot of times we have asked how counties would go ahead in preparing the budget estimates when actually the Division of Revenue has not been passed and the County Allocation of Revenue Bills have not been passed in Parliament. And so, Mr. Speaker, we all know that the letter and the spirit of the 2010 Constitution with regard to division of revenue was to ensure equity in resource distribution. However, as it is, the division of revenue appears to be simply a schedule that is not really addressing county issues. It's very disappointing, Mr. Speaker, that despite our efforts to ensure timeliness in the division of revenue for the reasons that I have already stated, the National Treasury is still not honoring House resolutions and continues to violate the Constitution at will. And more particularly, I want to refer to Article 219 of the Constitution that clearly states in black and white that a county's share of revenue shall be transferred to the county without undue delay and without deduction. So when we hear, Mr. Speaker, that some county staff have not or have to endure 5 months with no salaries, I cannot help to wonder, have the National Treasury staff also gone without salary, Mr. Speaker? And, Mr. Speaker, since when did it become okay to delay county disbursement such that even salaries cannot be paid for almost half a year, Mr. Speaker? Even if revenue has significantly underperformed, Mr. Speaker, the public finance management provisions on cash management allow for short-term borrowing to meet urgent demands such as payment of salaries in case of revenue shortfall. There is no reason, Mr. Speaker, whatsoever for county employees to have gone without pay for months on end. And, Mr. Speaker, it is a high time that we understood some of the provisions in law, like when you talk of which, in quotes, Mr. Speaker, in the Division of Revenue Bill, it should be understood what that actually means. The Division of Revenue Bill has always indicated that the national government's share of revenue then puts of which, meaning that the list of conditional allocations to counties that follows is included in the national government's share of the revenue. So always, even though we put it down in the schedule, indicating a breakdown of those conditional grants, but they are part and parcel of the national government revenue. The listing of the conditional allocations under the term of which is merely for transparency purposes, just to explain what exactly is the conditional grants and what do they mean. Like we have been talking about the road maintenance levy, we have been talking about the user fee forgone, so that we know exactly what is contained in the conditional grant. Why then would a judge rule that conditional grants are not part of shared revenue? Mr. Speaker, I'm having serious reservations on the court's understanding of PFM matters. And I really don't know whether we have financial consultants in court to advise our legal teams to understand exactly what some of the terminologies that are used in the public finance management laws really mean. Mr. Speaker, the court has further directed that the conditional grants be distributed through the county revenue fund. But how is the question? Mr. Speaker, you can see my time is up.
You have more time than that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But how is the question? We are aware of the following instruments of appropriation. We have the Annual Appropriation Act, the Supplementary Appropriation Law, the Division of Revenue Act, and the County Allocation of Revenue Act. If the funds are not included in any of these appropriations, then how then would it be taken to the county revenue fund? Mr. Speaker, let me just highlight another serious issue that I have, just 1 minute, to touch on another matter of serious concern, and that is the issue of pending bills. Every year, Mr. Speaker, when we debate Division of Revenue Bill and County Allocation of Revenue Bill, we never hear a similar debate in this House on the status of these pending bills. This is something that we should take seriously. Why? Because pending bills is just robbing Kenyans, the suppliers. We are asking Kenyans to supply, to do construction projects, etc., when we are not ready to pay, when we don't even have funds to pay, and we don't even go a step further to provide for those funds in the subsequent financial years. Mr. Speaker, it is immoral, it is unjust, it is unprofessional and unethical. Mr. Speaker, I just want to stop there and say that there are, as the chair did say, there are very, very minimal amendments to this bill, and with those many remarks, I want to second the motion. Thank you.
Other members, the member for Kitutu Church and North. Other members, I propose a question, which is that the Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2021, be now considered. Leader Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to second to support the report by the committee. This is a fairly procedural matter, despite both the mover and seconder taking us through a whole lot of history on the bill, because we debated this bill, the Division of Revenue Bill, in this House. We took it to the Senate, again, because of some historical issues, where the court said that we should actually be taken to the Senate, much as we actually don't see its relevance within the Senate. This is a matter for appropriation, should have been finalized within this House. And the Senate, in their wisdom, looked at some of those things and said, this memo item needs to be redone in a certain way. But by that changing the presentation, then it needs to come back here. So we are not talking about the figures. We are not talking about how much will go to the counties, how much will go to the national. We are talking about presentation issues. And we don't need to dwell a lot on form. I wish it was substance. So this is a matter of really the presentation of and the disclosure. When we now have the estimates, which will now itemize each of these individual items into the different votes and how they'll be done, then we can now spend more time on the substance. But in terms of matters to do with form, again, it's just something that we need to do because it has come back to us. And I want to thank the Senate because they have also highlighted an issue that came from the courts. Although, going forward, even as we engage, I hope that with the reforms in the judiciary, at some point, we will get some clarity in terms of to what extent should courts be prescribing what happens in a house or how money is appropriated. Because I'm not sure they have the expertise to actually rule on some of those things. But since they've done it, and we must respect the courts, then we are bound to then look at how that kind of presentation takes place. But I would like to ask members that perhaps we still have two processes. We have to get into the committee of the whole to consider this and then report back to the House. And given the limited time that we have, if members are willing, we could cut a lot of debate on this because we debated the DORB here in this House. The only change is a presentation issue, which we should not be debating on whether it should be presented like this or like that. We agree with the Senate. And to the extent that we agree, then there's no debate. We should just move on. We finish this matter so that it can go for assent to unlock the door for the division of, the printed estimates to come to this House before that year. Because the same courts declared that we cannot have the printed estimates being brought to the House or even being prepared by the Treasury until we have a Division of Revenue Act, not a Division of Revenue Bill, Act, which means it has to have been assented to. The Constitution puts the limit that the estimates need to be in this House by Friday, right? We only have, today is Wednesday, we only have tomorrow to have this assented to, Treasury printing the estimate, bringing it to this House before the constitutional deadline. Otherwise, next week, we will end up with a lot of, in a quagmire of legal issues.
But even before you speak, Honorable Amalo, you will speak, Honorable Amalo, but just, that issue raised by the Honorable Bandi and Honorable Kimunya, I think it's an important one. Maybe for our members of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, we could send some message, because you meet with all the people you oversight in the justice sector, that indeed some of the orders that come from the courts are extremely strange. Some of these, that the Appropriations Act of 2018, the Supplementary Appropriations Act of 2018, the Appropriations Act of 2019, Supplementary Appropriations Act of 2019 were unconstitutional, and another is hereby issued that the speakers of the two houses of parliament go to regularize. One question is, do they understand what an Appropriations Act does? It authorizes expenditure with the draw of money. In 2018 and 2019, even to the judiciary itself, and we authorize and they have spent, and they now want us to regularize. Then they should. Why regularize? They should just say we are going to repay because we received unconstitutionally. I mean, there's really need for somebody to try and talk to. There are some are fairly knowledgeable, but there are some who, sometimes when you empanel some fellows, you pick them from various outer stations where they never just concentrate mainly on matters to do with pregnancy compensation, dowry payment, to come and give them matters to do with interpretation of the Constitution. You obviously are giving them a terrible headache. They find they can't understand. because they have left the station. They have been out there in the outer stations, and they don't deal with these matters frequently. Anyhow, Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the Honorable Gitonga Murugara is in the house. Please take up this matter. Honorable Kaluma, you can assist them. Tell them, before they make it, some of those, they should ask people to explain to them, call even experts from the universities or from the Treasury to explain to them what does this bill do, what an act of this nature, what does it do? When you say a Finance Act 2018 is unconstitutional, I mean, that is the authority on which even the taxes from which your own salaries were paid from was collected. I mean, it just doesn't add up. Honorable Amalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I rise to support this division of revenue as amended by the Senate, one thing I want to request, Mr. Speaker, listening from Honorable Badi and Honorable Majority Leader, Treasury, can Treasury appeal? Because it seems Treasury should also appeal against this issue, Mr. Speaker, so that as we move forward. But the moment the Treasury has not appealed, now we are forced to comply with the law. So my humble request is the Committee on Budget, maybe it should give it as a recommendation for Treasury to appeal against this. And in case there's no capacity, we request the Treasury, before they do maybe any part of these judgments, they should be able to be told by the financial expert in terms of the implication. Mr. Speaker, I have no much to say. It's a straightforward bill, and I support. I thank you.
Honorable Duale, you wanted to add your voice?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the few instances I agree with the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, two reasons made the Senate to make this decision. One is a High Court petition of 2016, which informs, and it says very, very clearly, the court upheld that it is not permissible to provide for conditional grants in the Division of Revenue Bill. That's a court decision. And Honorable Malwa said they should appeal. It's already past time. The 14 days is gone. So we have to live with it. Number two, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Bandi himself, a long-standing member of the Budget Committee, in all their recommendations, in all the years, they were asking the National Executive and government to provide policy on how these conditional grants should be used. It's a record of this House. And if nobody is bringing the policy, then the House must act. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, this money, to oversight it even by the legislature, is a problem, particularly the donor money. I am a member of the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Speaker. The PS devolution comes to the committee. The PS housing was there last week. They have just become a conveyor belt of donor money. They just send to the counties, and they have no oversight role. We cannot, as the National Assembly, we have a problem of inviting the governor and his team. So, Mr. Speaker, and I am a living example, my governor is in court for eating the World Bank Infrastructure Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, if you go to level 5 hospitals today, be it Kakamega, be it Garissa, Embu, Nyeri, where every year this House appropriates over 350 million, today you will not find Panadol. Today you will not get, if you go to the maternity, women are being told to go and buy basic things for delivery. If you go to our polytechnics, this House appropriates close to 200 million shilling to village polytechnics in our constituencies. I want to ask these members, is there a development in your village polytechnics done by the counties? So, Speaker, the essence of this now amendment by the Senate is that this money, both grants, loans, whether it is the one for maternity, whether it is the one for the village polytechnics, even the one for the roads. Let me ask members here, our little money, 16 million, is seen in our constituencies. What about the 200 million given to every county through the Division of Revenue Bill every year? So, Mr. Speaker, it's better this House makes a decision and agree with the Senate that this amount of money, conditional grants and loans from the national government and from donors be returned back to national government, ministries, departments, and agencies. And we have no apologies to make. And we'll ask the new Chief Justice if this House approves the lady from Meru to employ economists, to employ fiscal analysts, to consult with the Treasury, you know, so that as they deal with the matter the Speaker raised, they are advised. Their researchers, part of their researchers should not be legal. There should be fiscal analysts who will tell them the implication of annulling the appropriation bill. But Mr. Speaker, you know, the problem was not even the judiciary. The problem was our brothers here, next door, the Senate. They are the ones who went to court. They should have sifted the case properly and remove, you know, bills or acts that touch on themselves. But as you said, if you annul Appropriation Bill 2018, then you ought to return all the money that you have used as an institution. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a good day for devolution. Every penny that goes to devolve units, I'm sure there are people who want to become governors here. Don't worry. If you behave well, we will bring back this conditional grant. But if you become like the ones who are in power now, we will only give you what is due to you, which is the equitable share. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dr. Nyikal, member for Seme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion. And, Mr. Speaker, I do it for two reasons. One, the Senate has actually done a good job. The Budget Committee also scrutinized the work that the Senate did. But more importantly, that for once, we have avoided the delays that come from our disagreement. But, Mr. Speaker, why is it that every time when we are doing the division of revenue bill, an issue comes up? Even this time, the formula was a big problem. And even now, we have accepted this. Mr. Speaker, I've said this, and I would have liked the leader of majority to hear this, but definitely the chair of the Budget Committee, Mr. Speaker, I believe there is an intrinsic structural problem that we have not looked at. And it starts at the time of the budget policy statement. Mr. Speaker, when that document comes to us, it gives us a lot of information on the needs of the national government, a lot of it, which actually we base our decision on. We even think of how we can help our constituencies. At that point, we have no information at all on what the counties need, except that we'll use the formula that we know of not less than 15%. That is where the problem is, because if we had known, then we'll react appropriately. The only information we have is actually the conditional grants, and those we know what they're going to do in the counties. So they're the ones we discuss. So, Mr. Speaker, in my view, the IBEC, the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, where there's an interaction between the national government and the county government in terms of needs, should actually, Mr. Speaker, up its work so that we get some information at the budget policy statement time on what the needs of the counties are, so that as we use the 15% formula, we also put inside into consideration the needs of the counties. And Mr. Speaker, I've said this many times. I know the chair of budget didn't hear what I said, but I'll actually follow up and explain this to them. But I support this, but there's a structural issue that we need to look at. Otherwise, we'll always have this at the time of the divisional of revenue bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order, Honorable Sankok?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm rising on point of order, our standing order 95, that reading from the mood of the House. We are all discussing the same thing, and everybody is speaking on the same issue, and there is not a lot of amendments. So I'm standing, Honorable Speaker, so that the mover may be called to reply. Thank you.
Very well. I put the question, which is that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as many as have opinion say aye? Many of opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Mover.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. With a lot of humility, thank you, honorable members. I reply.
Honourable members, having confirmed that the House has the requisite quorum, I proceed to put the question, which is that the Senate's amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2021, be now considered. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, Committee of the Whole House.
Order members, take your seats. We will be moving pretty fast because let's bring it. Okay, honorable members, we are now doing a committee of the whole, considering the Senate amendments to the considering the Senate amendments. And please, honorable members, it will be a brief one, so kindly let us be together here. So let's proceed.
Senate amendments to the schedule.
Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that the Senate amendments to the schedule be approved. I put the question, which is that the Senate amendments to the schedule be approved. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So, honorable members, we have finalized. That was the only item for. So I want to request the mover to move reporting.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration on the Senate amendment to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly number 7 of 2021, and its approval thereof without amendments.
Very well. So then I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Senate amendment to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2021, and its approval thereof without amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. And as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Order. Order, members. Chairperson.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2021, and approved the same without amendments.
Very well, mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request Honorable John Buddy to second the motion for the agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Very well, the Honorable Buddy.
I second.
He has. Honorable members, allow me then to propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Is it the mood of the House that we put the question?
Thank you. Honorable members, allow me then, having confirmed that we have the requisite quorum, to put the question. And I put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So members, that marks the close of today's morning's business. And honorable members, the time being 12:43 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 28th April 2021 at 2:30 p.m.